Hello and welcome to this Body Slam Progress special as we look ahead to the historic Progress Roy Johnson's Everything Patterned London. To help us preview this amazing event is the man himself. He is Ibiza's favourite wrestler, member of the 8-7, Roy Johnson. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, how are you doing? Honesty is as we say in Ibiza in Spain.
Indeed. I'm a huge fan, so I'm really psyched to have you on today on this one. We're, of course, we're Tea and Tights, a Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net, brought to you by Powerful TV. I have no co-host today, but it's, we've got Roy Johnson. Do we need a co-host? He is
I could
the
be
Progress
host if you
host.
want.
Excellent. So, of course, we are talking about this absolutely historic event for Progress with their first ever BAME show. So let's, you've always been quite vocal about representation. So do you just want to just go through why representation matters for people who don't seem to understand why it does?
Well, it's quite a loaded question. Well, I think it's a loaded question anyway, because there's many different facets that go into why it matters. If I talk firstly, maybe the economics and business part of wrestling.
Yeah, go for it.
And for me, it's not all about, but it's very partially about, and it's actually very important to grow the British wrestling scene. Now, to grow the scene, you need to appeal to a wider audience, to get new customers in through the door. And one thing that, and I'm speaking, I guess, primarily over maybe the last couple of years or so, because it's got a lot better. But the reflection of faces in the crowd doesn't reflect, I guess, the full picture of the UK and its background, its demographics, and that sort of thing. Now, for example, if you go to a London show, maybe 2-3 years ago, I say 3 years ago because we've had the blip, but the faces in the crowd primarily were white males, and people of all races and genders and color and creed or what have you. They all love wrestling. Yeah. I have friends, black friends who love wrestling, really, really passionate about wrestling, whether that be WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, MLW, and everything going on in the independents. But a lot of them don't come to watch British wrestling shows, or haven't done in the past, purely because the people that they see around them, they don't really reflect them. They feel like they stick out. They don't feel like the show is for them on that side. And then in terms of the talent that they've seen a lot of the time, and in the past, it's not really been as diverse. It's not really reflected themselves. Me growing up as a wrestling fan, I always looked to wrestlers who I thought represented me, and you do this when you're young.
Yeah.
If you think about a young child and say they want to dress up as a wrestler, they're likely going to pick a wrestler they can feel they look like.
Yeah.
So for me, growing up, I had guys like D'Lo Brown, The Rock. I'd probably say actually, D'Lo Brown, The Rock. Then you had Farouk, Mark Henry, The Godfather. So the Nation Domination guys, that sort of stuff. So I had wrestlers that I could kind of look up to, that reflected me as a young black man growing up. And it's equally important to do that on the independents. Now, where WWE are very good at this, I think they understand. Well, actually, I know they understand this because I've had conversations with people in there about it. But about how their programming is a television show and how they cast roles for a television show.
Yeah.
So, like what you'd have in EastEnders, for example, you'd have an Asian family, you'd have a black family, you'd have you know, a gay couple, a lesbian couple, or what have you, because it reflects the lifestyle and society that we live in. Independent wrestling, whilst it isn't on TV, it still needs to really do that to be able to entice people to come and watch and to pay part of their hard-earned money. Now, related to that, on the diversity and the representation piece, so my nephew is a big wrestling fan. He's 9 years old. He loves WWE. His dad's trying to get him into AEW, but it might just be bit too adult for him yet. But he loves WWE. Big fan of Kofi Kingston and the New Day, and you know they're his favorite wrestlers. And he has every wrestling figure you could have. He has 3 wrestling rings. He has replica belts. Everything. He's
deep
got a
in.
lot. Yeah, he's deep in WWE. So, and I want to be able to take him to a wrestling show one day, an independent wrestling show for, you know, family show or what have you. But I'm not going to do so if I can't sit there with him and he can look into the ring and see a reflection of himself in one of the talent that's performing. Yeah. Because subconsciously that tells a child, if they don't see that maybe this isn't for them, you know, or as a fan, and potentially something that he might want to do later on down the line in life. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it and why it's important to me in terms of especially bringing people in and the crowds and such. As a wrestler, my initial issue with it was that Black and minority ethnic wrestlers weren't seen as equal to their counterparts, you know, 2-3 years ago. And in conversations I had with people backstage at a Progress show, actually, which, and this is no slight to the old Progress and what have you, but the card that was on it was all an all-white card, and in something that isn't rare at all.
Yeah.
This happens very regularly. I could probably the cards went on last weekend that met by multiple cards last weekend who had all white talent, and I don't think people notice these things and realize that that it happens and that the importance of it, of why that shouldn't happen. But I guess very much similar to the point where, like, if you see a show with women's wrestlers on, and then if you see a young girl in the crowd and you just look at how that girl will then look at the 2 women wrestlers in awe, and you know, I've seen it so many times, and where they've then gone to meet the talent after the show, a merch or meet and greets, whatever, and like they look at these women wrestlers as their heroes.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, you know, children of color and looking at the wrestlers of color. Now, anyway, sorry, I kind of sidestep what I was talking about in terms of talent and wrestlers and stuff, but yeah. So at this particular wrestling show, we were discussing diversity, and the question was raised was, okay, so who would you take off this show to replace with a wrestler of color, implying that the wrestlers of color in the country weren't on the same level as those.
Yeah, that's
on that particular show, which is a fair point, because a lot of these people had more experience. But the thing with professional wrestling is you don't get better, you don't get to that level of shows without being on the shows and without having that experience and building to those big shows. So that's why I wanted to do everything patterned. That's how the idea came into my head. Unfortunately, I don't have the resources to put on wrestling shows and also the time to put on wrestling shows. So I don't know if you can hear ringing.
No, I can't.
Oh, it's just me. Sorry. Anyway, so I don't have the resources and the time as well to put on shows of my own. So I kind of parked the idea and waited until I had a bit more money saved up to do it. In that time, Wrestling Resurgence got in touch with me and said they wanted to run a show for Black History Month, and I just told them, well, I've actually have had this idea that I've been sat on for quite a while, and this is the card that I've drawn up. What do you think? And they're like, oh, this is a great card. And that card pretty much, other than one person who was booked elsewhere, was the card that we had everything patterned.
Oh.
So yeah, and it did everything. The first one did everything we wanted to achieve. In terms of raising the profile of the wrestlers featured on it, we had people in there who ended up getting signed for NXT UK, people who ended up working for WWE, people who ended up working for AEW, NWA, people who are now booked very prominently up and down the country, people who have had WWE tryouts, people who are champions all over the country. You know, the profile of people on that show really has been boosted. We had fans who came to that show and that was their first wrestling show they've been to, and they now continue to support British wrestling. Yeah, it's just did really everything I wanted it to do in the first one, and you know, I think I've only just recently realized how important the first one was. And yeah, and what it's done for the scene. So you know, hopefully we can continue that.
Yeah, I mean, because now you've got arguably what is the #1 British wrestling promotion. It's very difficult to argue that they're not the #1. So I mean, how pleased you are that this. When did the conversation start? Was it with the older management or the new management?
So it was with older management. So I can't even remember. Well, sometime last year, we started talking about it as part of the anniversary week. It might have been towards the end of last year. I know, though, that I'm sure, from what I understand, that negotiations talks were going on in the background between old management and new management. So I don't know whether the new management were aware and involved in the process for it. They probably were, but it got confirmed after the management change. So yeah. And I think the fact that it's part of the anniversary week as well is such a big thing. You know, there's only, well, actually, there's 2 shows that are outside of the, I guess, outside the norm. You have the anniversary show itself, which I look at as a chapter show back in its original roots. But you have the all women show and everything patterned within that, and it's such a huge statement. And the fact that the conversation about this started backstage at a Progress show just shows how far we've come in that short amount of time. To the fact where, you know, the conversation was held whether the talent on that particular show could be replaced by, you know, black or minority ethnic wrestlers, and now we've got a whole show, a whole Progress show. So massive strides, massive improvement, and literally progress.
I remember just recently we did we fantasy booked our own version of it on one of our weekly British Wrestling Roundup, because there's just so many amazing talents. And even after we sort of like booked our card fantasy book, you're afterwards, you're just like, oh, I forgot about, and it's incredible just to see so many people. You have got a huge matchup. You are teaming with your 87 brother, who is making his Progress debut finally. I've been looking forward to seeing Alexander off in Progress for a long time, and having the full 87 there. And is it the East City or the Easy City Sovereigns, RJ Singh?
East City Sovereigns, yeah.
Yeah, East City Sovereigns. RJ Singh returning. The king of British wrestling is back in Progress. I think it was around chapter 40. It's
where he retired.
Was it Sticks match? Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't remember which. Oh no, that was like, must have been chapter. Oh, it was early. It was early in the chapters, definitely, because it was because this is an Easter egg, but I was a part of RJ's entrance for that. And this was before I started wrestling, and I made my chapter debut on chapter 27. So I have a feeling this is around chapter 16, 17, I think.
I think you might be right.
But yeah, it's great to have him back on chapter or on a large Progress show. He's done some bits in terms of stuff at the Dome when we were doing Freedom's Road back in those days. I believe he had a match with, oh God, I can't remember. I know he had a tag match and a singles match within that though. So he, but this is like really a great big return for him as well because he's not been back since. So yeah, great stuff. Really great to have RJ back on board.
Bringing his protege with him, Jordan Said, recently being former Italian Wrestling Association heavyweight champion.
Yes.
Jordan Said, although he's back over there shortly to try and reclaim that. And then you've got the tribe called Catch, which is the team of Sugar Duncanton making his UK return, his Progress debut, and Darius Lockhart. How much do you know about these guys? Have you been watching them on the independents much?
Well, I know Darius very well because I've trained with him for years. Because when he was over here doing his tours of the UK, he would regularly train at Knuckle Locks, where I trained.
Yeah,
I think I first met him at Tommaso Ciampa seminar years ago. This is, God, I want to say maybe 7 years ago now, maybe. So I've known Darius for a long time, and when this show was conceptualized and when we were talking about it, Darius was the first person I wanted to involve in this show. So the fact that we've managed to work things out where he's over in the country and we can get him on, it's just great. Sugar, obviously I've known him very well from, he was obviously on the last show. I met him a few times as part of his tour when he came over here, and he's just whilst he irritates me, but he's a great guy, and like just incredibly positive about wrestling, and he's so like well traveled and has so much experience in wrestling that him and I'd say him and RJ Singh as well are both people who really, like, people coming up on the scene really could benefit with being around. So yeah, it's just great to be able to get him involved as well.
So are the 8-7 going to pick up the victory in the match?
Well, this is where all the niceties about my opponents stop, because you're now in you're going to have a problem in front of you in terms of me and Alex Roth as the 8-7. So I'm not looking to be embarrassed on my show. Roth isn't looking to be embarrassed on his Progress debut that he's been waiting and working for a while. So everyone's just better stay out of our way. That's what it comes down to, really.
It's a huge matchup, and you've got a massive match on the card. Jonathan Gresham will be taking on Malik. Will he be the Progress champion?
It's going to take something special to take that championship off Cara Noir. I think Jonathan Gresham has what it takes to do it. I'd love for him. I love Cara Noir, but I'd love to see him take the title and defend everything patterned. If we get in a position where the Progress World Championship is being defended on that show, that'd just be fantastic. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Now, Warren Banks, I know he's been on your case a little bit at Progress about reclaiming this 8-7 mentality. He's got a huge match up against one of the legends of the British wrestling scene in Jody Fleisch. And yeah, tell us about that one.
Well, I mean, that was going to be fantastic and potentially a show stealer. And both wrestlers are guys that I mean, Warren I know very well. I've wrestled him many times, and obviously we teamed together as the 8-7, so I know so much about him and what he's capable of. Jody, I have so much respect for Jody as an in-ring performer and as a wrestler, and again, another person who's just great to have around at shows. He looks and still wrestles like he's in his 20s, and in fact, I used to watch Jody on the wrestling channel. I'm showing my age now, but I used to watch Jody on the wrestling channel, and this is way before I became. This is probably 10 years before I decided to wrestle. That I would watch Jody on the wrestling channel, and the fact that like, I've actually got to wrestle him, it blows my mind. B, that he's still going, he's still performing at a very high level, and see that he's going to perform and going to wrestle at a very high level on everything patterned. So I'm delighted that he's there. I could probably share with you now. Actually, Jody was the one guy I wanted to book on the first one who I couldn't book. He was the only one who was booked elsewhere that day. So yeah, it's just great that we're able to get him on the show.
So I'm sure he's super excited to be on this show as well. 4 of the young, incredible talents are going to be on your show. You got man like Therese versus Leon Slater making his debut. Incredibly athletic. He's got one of the highest standing jumps I think I've ever seen. He doesn't do the leapfrog. He just jumps over his opponent. It's incredible. Right. He's absolutely someone you know very well, Levi Muir, and then Keenan Krishna from Northwest Strong. 4 amazing young talents. What does the future hold for these guys?
Yeah, this is enough one. I said it the reason for this one could also steal the show. Obviously you got Keenan who's starting to make waves in progress as a member of Northwest Strong. So he brings that real gritty element to the match. You got Leon Slater, who I've seen and heard like great things about him, and he's really one to watch for the future. Man like Therese, he's becoming one of the top names on the scene at the moment. Like incredible energy and the
best entrance in British wrestling.
Probably the best entrance in the British wrestling. And he's just a fantastic wrestler to go with it as well. Incredibly athletic, scarily so. So yeah, and he can do so many great things. And then there's Levi, who's a bit of an unknown in this match because we've not really seen much of him for the last couple of years, but he's an absolute monster. I know personally, I know he's an absolute monster. I know he's an absolute beast, and he's one of the hardest working young wrestlers there is out in there at the moment. And
he's been at that NXT Performance Center as well, so exactly. He's been working hard.
So the last time we seen him at Progress, he's a complete different wrestler, a complete different animal from what he was before. He's had that experience at NXT UK for 2 years, and he's just a phenomenal athlete. So I mean that match really does have potential to steal the show. When you see what these guys can do.
Indeed. We've got Harry Singh versus TK Cooper of the Sunshine Machine. Should be fun.
Yes, this should be a lot of fun. TK is another one who's a fantastic wrestler. He's been with Progress for quite a while. I think Mambo's probably the one on the roster who's been with Progress the longest, I want to say, in terms of people who are on the chapter shows and stuff at the moment. Probably followed by TK and then me, or it might be me then TK. But yeah, so TK's been around for a while, and he's now added new dimension and layers to what he's done for years with working with Mambo, bringing like a new energy to what he's doing. And obviously he's a fantastic wrestler. And then you've got Harry Singh, who's relatively new to Progress, who's also a fantastic wrestler. You saw him against Anthony Ogogo at the beginning of the year, which is a great match, and I think this one should follow suit.
And of course, we've got the women's matchup, Progress Women's Champion for now, Giselle Shaw versus the amazing Holly Dead.
Yes. So it's always good to see Giselle. Giselle's an absolute superstar. Like one of the top women's wrestlers in the scene, and she's just fantastic. So it's great to have her on board, and her against Holly Dead, who's a massive name in independence and coming back to Progress. Having her available for this week as well is fantastic. So this one should be another great match. So I'm now thinking about it. It's gonna be really hard to pick what's gonna actually be a show stealer here, because all the matches so far have just all been, they all seem banging. So
it's a massive card. It's fantastic, as you say. Before we let you go, obviously it is The 23rd at the Dome in London. I think tickets are still available.
Tickets are still available, yes. 23rd of March, next week, Wednesday. I don't know when it's going out, but I hope before Wednesday.
Before Wednesday, yeah. I think over the weekend, I'll drop it over the weekend.
So the 23rd, Wednesday, at the Dome in Tufnell Park, across the road from Tufnell Park rail station or tube station. And yeah, tickets are still available. So just, go on it. Get your
tickets,
ticket.
progress.com or something, isn't it?
I think it's Dice. It's on Dice's ticketing platform.
Okay. So
but yeah, once it's put up, maybe I can tweet a link next to it or alongside it or what have you. So
indeed. Okay. Now, before I let you go, 25th anniversary show. Warren Banks is going to take on whoever is holding that Progress Wrestling Championship. How huge is it to have that representation on that 25th anniversary show in that main event? I mean, not 20, sorry, that 10th anniversary show on the 25th. I've done that so many times.
God, if it's 25 years. Oh,
God, yeah.
I mean, it probably will get to 25 years. It's quite scary, though. Yeah, it's just massive. Like I said, when we had conversations in the past and it was implied that wrestlers of color weren't on the level of the white counterparts to be able to get on those shows. The fact that we have one in Warren Banks main eventing, probably one of the biggest Progress shows in their history, with it being the 10th anniversary show, back where it all began at the garage. Yeah, it's just great stuff. The only potential issues I see with it is who is the opponent going to be. It could be Cara, could be Ilya, could be Malik, it could be Jonathan Gresham. The picture of who that's going to be really isn't clear. So I hope that clears up quickly for Warren, because it's a bit of an issue. I mean, I'd find that an issue preparing someone for a title match that big, and I don't know who it is going to be. So
yeah, they've all got so completely different styles, each one of them. So as you say, preparation is going to be difficult. It is huge. If I'm right, he and Gresham have the opportunity now to become the first Progress BAME champion since Rampage.
Yes.
And he actually didn't, he had the staff and not the Progress world title.
So would it be the first person to hold the actual Progress title? Yeah.
Indeed. So again, something that could be absolutely historic. It could happen in the either.
Although Rampage was Atlas champion, so
yeah.
So it's different championship, but he did hold the belt. But yeah.
Excellent. I've had such a pleasure having you on today, Roy. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope the show goes well. I'm sure it absolutely will be phenomenal. Is it going to be on the WWE Network or? I
imagine so. To be honest, I've not had any. I've been so wrapped up in other things trying to sort out for the show. I have no idea. I hope it does. That'd make another huge statement if that is on there. But otherwise, it'll be on demand Progress without a doubt. So,
any last words for your opponents this weekend?
Stay out of my way. I've got a pounce ready for everyone. So. I've been loading them up, so stay out my way. That's all I'll say.
You heard the man, and with that said, ladies and gentlemen, just remember one thing: don't feed the trolls.